It started at the gas pump. You went to fill up like any other Tuesday, watched the numbers spin past $40, then 50, and you thought, didn't they say inflation was over? It wasn't, it just went quiet for a while, and in 2026, it came roaring back. Let's start with the number that set off the alarms. In May 2026, US consumer prices rose 4.2% compared to a year earlier. That's up from 3.8% just a month before in April, and it's the hottest reading we've seen in quite a while. After 2 solid years of being told inflation was cooling and the worst was behind us, prices quietly re-accelerated. This matters because inflation isn't just a headline you scroll past. It's the silent tax on everything you buy, groceries, rent, the tank of gas that started this whole story. When that number climbs instead of falls, every single dollar sitting in your wallet quietly shrinks while you sleep. So why did it come back? In one word, energy. The single biggest driver of this spike was the cost of fuel. Gasoline alone is up roughly 28% compared to a year ago. Not a typo, nearly a third more expensive. And here's the thing about energy that catches people off guard. It doesn't stay at the pump, it's baked into everything. The truck that delivers your food runs on diesel. The factory that makes your stuff runs on power. When energy jumps, it ripples outward into the price of almost everything with a delay. So even prices that look totally unrelated to oil start drifting upward weeks later. And you feel it long after the news has moved on. Now, normally, this is the part where the Federal Reserve rides to the rescue and cuts interest rates to ease the pressure. Not this time. Under its new chair, Kevin Warsh, the Fed held its policy rate steady at 3.5 to 3.75%. And markets now think the next move might actually be a hike, not a cut. That's a complete reversal from the cuts almost everyone expected earlier this year. For you, this means borrowing stays expensive. Credit cards, car loans, anything carrying a variable rate. The relief people were quietly banking on simply isn't coming anytime soon. The cavalry isn't on its way. So how does all this actually land on a normal household? Picture a regular monthly budget. Gas costs more, so the daily commute costs more. Higher energy quietly lifts the grocery bill and the utility bill at the same time. Meanwhile, the loans you already carry don't get any cheaper because rates aren't falling. It's a squeeze from both sides at once. The cost of living rising while the cost of your debt stays stubbornly high. Nobody made one big dramatic purchase. The budget just got tighter everywhere, all at once, $10 at a time, until the month simply doesn't add up the way it used to. And the data on how people actually feel about this is genuinely sobering. Roughly 48% of Americans now say they struggle to pay their monthly expenses, up sharply from 36% back in 2021. A record 55% say their finances are getting worse, not better. And in one of the more startling findings out there, about 67% say they fear running out of money more than they fear dying. Then layer on the debt. US household debt has now topped $18 trillion, with credit card balances alone sitting over $1.2 trillion. This is the heavy backdrop that everything else in your life quietly sits on top of. Here's the trap a lot of people fall straight into. Just wait it out, leave the money sitting in the bank, sit tight, ride out the storm. The problem is that cash sitting idle is quietly losing value the entire time it sits there. If prices are rising over 4% a year and your money is earning almost nothing, you're not standing still. You're slowly walking backwards without moving a muscle. Doing nothing feels safe and responsible, but in an inflationary stretch like this, doing nothing carries a very real cost. So let's talk about what you can actually do in plain general terms. Move 1. Attack your highest interest debt first. When rates are high and maybe even rising, the single most expensive thing most people own is their balance on high interest borrowing. And that's often a credit card. Every dollar you put toward that balance hands you a guaranteed return equal to the interest you're no longer paying on it. There's nothing flashy here, no clever trick, no secret loophole. But mathematically, knocking down a high interest balance is one of the most powerful moves available to a regular household in an environment exactly like this one. Move 2. Don't let idle cash just sit there quietly losing value. If you've got money parked somewhere earning basically zero, the general idea is to make sure your savings are actually working for you. For a lot of people, that means a high-yield savings account rather than an account paying you next to nothing. This isn't about chasing risky bets or trying to get rich. It's simply about not volunteering to lose ground to inflation when a safer, interest-earning home for your cash already exists. The goal is to keep your buffer intact while letting it at least try to keep pace with rising prices. Move 3. Cut your biggest variable costs. And yes, that absolutely includes energy. Since fuel and power are driving so much of this entire spike, that's exactly where careful trimming pays off the most. Combining trips instead of making 5 separate ones, being a little more deliberate about energy use at home, reviewing the subscriptions and recurring charges you completely forgot you were paying. None of it is glamorous, and none of it feels heroic. But the biggest, most flexible line items in your budget are precisely where small, repeated changes quietly add up to real money over the course of a year. Move 4, watch out for lifestyle creep and build yourself a buffer. When money is tight, the sneaky danger is letting your spending quietly drift up to match whatever you happen to earn. The move is to do the exact opposite, let any breathing room you find flow into a cushion instead of new expenses. Even a small, slowly growing buffer changes everything because it's the entire difference between a surprise being a minor annoyance and that same surprise becoming a full-blown crisis. In an uncertain economy, a buffer isn't a luxury. It's the thing that lets you actually sleep at night. So let's bring it all home. Inflation came back in 2026, hitting 4.2%, driven mostly by a sharp energy shock. The Fed is holding firm and may even hike, so cheap borrowing isn't returning anytime soon. Households are stretched thin and sitting in record debt, but the playbook stays steady and simple. Knock down high-interest debt, put idle cash somewhere it actually earns, trim your biggest variable costs, dodge lifestyle creep, and build a buffer. You can't control the headline number on the news, but you have far more control over your own slice of it than the headlines ever make you feel. If this made the economy make a little more sense, go ahead and like and subscribe. It genuinely helps the channel keep breaking this stuff down in plain English. Drop a comment with the one move you're going to make first, because saying it out loud makes it real. And take care of yourself out there. Small, steady steps genuinely